Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner, and this is stage 14 of the Giro d'Italia. 205 kilometers in length, 125 miles. It is a fabulous stage. The highlights of the stage, a Category 2 and a Category 1, the Zoncolan summit finish at the end of today's stage. Right away, the action starts with my man Victor Campenaerts going up the road. He'll get brought back quickly, but the action will continue with attacks after attacks until 11-man break gets away about 15 kilometers in the stage, being chased by another 6 or 7-man group. Ineos is not happy. They have their guys on the front, and they'll bring back the second group about 10 kilometers later. After that, Movistar hop on the front. They want more guys represented in the front group. They only have Nelson Oliveira up there, and they're not happy with their man. They're trying to jump guys across, but it's not going to happen. And 35 kilometers later, the race really shuts down as the favorites on the GC guys back there sit up and block the road. Now the break, it's a great chemistry. 11 guys and multiple teams with 2+ riders in there. Jumbo-Visma have Edoardo Affini up there. He was second on yesterday's stage, and you know he has some power in the legs because he's drilling this group to try to keep them off. So George Bennett has a chance of winning the stage on the famous Zoncolan climb, the summit finish of today's stage. 15 kilometers in length with more than 20% max pitches in the climb to the finish line of today's stage. Now, behind, Astana decides shortly after the race shuts down that they're going to bring the break back before the finish of today's stage to give their race leader, Alexander Vlasov, a chance of winning on today's famous climb. They'll ride about 100 miles all day long with zero help, but they add some excitement as we go over the Category 2 with about 50 kilometers to go. It's a technical, twisty, tight, narrow descent all the way down the mountain. And it's none other than Remco Evenepoel back there, Deceuninck Quickstep, that's really the one losing out on today's stage. Astana will come out of the bottom of that climb with 2 Ineos riders, race leader Egan Bernal, and the Bahrain victorious rider Damiana Caruso, who's attached on. Behind, there's a huge group of favorites in the second group, but they're only about 20 seconds back. The third group is where Deceuninck Quicksteps, Remco Evenepoel is back there, and he's got his team on the front chasing like crazy. In my mind, to lose this much time, if there wasn't something that caused that to happen, and it's just his riding ability on this climb, he should have never been made race leader at this year's Giro. If the crash from last October is still affecting his head, the ideal that you can come to a Grand Tour with these kind of descending skills and be able to have any chance of winning this year's Giro is just out of this world to think that's a possibility. He will get back on, but the only reason Deceuninck Quickstep are able to get him back up to the Astana team with Egan Bernal up there in the front is because nobody considers Evenepoel a threat for the general classification anymore. You go back to stage 11 when we're on the white sands of Italy, and there, as soon as Remco Evenepoel got dropped, it was multiple teams up there chasing, pulling like crazy so that the Deceuninck Quickstep rider can't get back on. Today's stage, when you see him come down that descent, the only reason Deceuninck Quickstep's able to close that 40-50 second gap off the bottom of that climb is because no one considered Remco Evenepoel a threat for this year's Giro win. Now, Astana's up there still pulling. Nobody wants to help them. The groups all come back together, and now they're large. It's large back there with the GC favorites. The breakaway riders went down that Category 2 descent all together, stayed smooth. Edoardo Affini, the Jumbo-Visma rider, is pulling like crazy for George Bennett to give him a chance at winning today's stage. They'll enter the climb with a gap of about 6 minutes, and so we know they have a chance of making it to the finish. The Astana-led peloton in the back, those guys are getting tired. When we get on the climb, they're doing the best they can to bring the time down, but they're really not doing any damage on the breakaway riders. Up front with 11 kilometers to go, it's Jan Tratnik, Bahrain victorious rider, who puts in the first real attack and gets a gap immediately. Now, when I'm sitting on the couch, I don't know if I'm watching these guys playing some cat and mouse games in the back, because remember, it's George Bennett and Bach Mollema from Trek Segafredo back there Two very, very good climbers, and they're getting dropped by Jan Tratnik, and Tratnik is a big boy. Now, 1 kilometer later, it's Lorenzo Fortunato who throws in attack, and he's trying to bridge across to Jan Tratnik. It'll take him a couple kilometers before he attaches on, and then those two will work some magic and always working well together to hold off the breakaway riders from behind. George Bennett, Bach Mollema, Nelson Oliveira, they're not doing any damage into the two riders up front. Just about 2 kilometers to go is when Lorenzo Fortunato throws an attack on Jan Tratnik and gets a gap. At about 1.5 kilometers before the finish, one of the spectators is on his left side and bumps him hard and causes some rhythm in his pedal strokes. Luckily, Lorenzo will get a push from that same spectator to make up any time lost there, and Lorenzo is digging deep trying to hold off Jan Tratnik. Jan Tratnik will pop back in the picture occasionally to add a little bit of drama on today's finish, but with about 400 to 600 meters to go on a 20+% steep climb, we see Jan Tratnik paperboying left and right back there, and that's when we know with about 400 meters to go that no one's going to catch Lorenzo Fortunato, as he's going to take a spectacular win for the Eolo Cometa team. It's one of the smallest teams in this year's race. They're led by Alberto Contador, the Grand Tour, Tour de France champion, Giro champion, and Tour of Spain champion. Ivan Basso is the manager, also amazing Grand Tour wins. And in the car driving is Director Sportif Sean Yates. I was teammates with Alberto Contador and had helped him many times win races at the Basque Country. And I had Sean Yates as my director at times with Radio Shack. A fantastic win for Fortunato on today's stage. Well deserved, and just suffered all the way to the line. Now let's go back to the GC favorites, because there's 2 battles going on today's stage. Astanos was pulling but couldn't do any damage. With 8 kilometers to go, it's Gianni Moscon that gets on the front for Ineos to start driving the pace and making it harder on everyone else. Ineos look fabulous up there. Martinez does the last pull for Egan Bernal when it's Simon Yates throwing in a great attack, just about a kilometer to go. And we're talking about on the 20% plus steepness pitches of today's stage. He'll pull for about 500 to 800 meters before Egan Bernal lights him up with about 400 to 600 meters to go and gains 10 seconds plus on him by the end of today's stage. Egan Bernal looked fantastic to me all the way up the climb. Perfect position and just riding magical on the pedals. Behind, who looked bad? Remco Evenepoel's any chance for him to win at this year's Giro just went out the window when he dropped off with about 1.5K, 2K before the finish of today's climb. Almeida, his teammate, was absolutely amazing for him on today's stage, always around him at crucial moments, except a little bit too far ahead when when Remco Evenepoel first dropped off with about 1.5K to go. Almeida will look back, drop back immediately, and shepherd him all the way to the finish. The Koenig Quickstep, really, in my opinion, it was a big error on how they entered this year's Giro with all the drama around them, having 2 leaders, and then, of course, bringing Remco Evenepoel, who's clearly having problems riding his bike downhill, and leaving him as one of the guys as their GC favorites. Now they need to start racing for stage victories. Almeida clearly has some form. If he gets into one of these breaks, he can cause some damage and possibly win a stage. Remco Evenepoel has enough form to be able to win from the breakaway for sure, but I don't believe he's going to be able to win anything when we're talking about the overall general classification here at the Giro. It was an exciting stage today. Egan Bernal was floating on the pedals, did some more damage to all the GC favorites. Simon Yates came out of the shadow to put on a show and move up on the general classification. He'll move up into second place. Damiano Caruso, the Bahrain victorious rider, will stay in third, but Alexander Vlasov, the Astana rider whose team rode all day long, will lose 2 places and jump behind Damiano Caruso on the general classification. We got a good battle. Simon Yates has come out of the shadows, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the battle with Egan Bernal and Yates on the following stages to come at this year's Giro. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon.